Hey fellow homebrewers, welcome back. Today we're going to do a 10-gallon batch of pumpkin ale, as I mentioned in the previous clip. And I thought I'd go through the bill of materials with you really quick. It's 14 pounds of 2-row, 4 pounds of Munich malt 10L, 1 pound of the crystal malt 60L, 1 pound of the caramel crystal malt 80L. And we'll be mashing in 6 1/4 gallons of water at 168 degrees. And that should give us a pretty decent steeping temperature of 152 degrees, which we'll do for an hour. And then we'll do our sparge, get the boil going, and it's 2 ounces of cluster hops, and that's the only hop addition there is. And then we'll follow that up as soon as I terminate the boil with 4 teaspoons of the pumpkin spice. And that will do it. And we'll use Safe Ale US-05 as the yeast. So I'm getting the water ready right now. When it's ready, we'll go ahead and we'll mash in and get things going along. In the meantime, while the water is getting up to temperature, it's all the boring stuff that needs to be done, like sanitizing. And there's just not a lot to be said for all the prep. It just always takes time. And it's not like you're only going to go through it once. You're going to be doing it over and over again during the course of brewing if you're reusing any of your tubing, which I do. So there's always a lot of cleaning and sanitizing going on. So I'm just doing the mash tun now. And I will do my boil kettle as well, even though really the only thing I'm concerned about on that is the discharge valve. So the rest of it I'm really not that concerned about. And that's about it. And the rest of this stuff, like the carboys, that'll all get sanitized later in the process. There's no sense in doing it now. So anyway, back when we mash in. I don't have much hope of staying out of the way on this step, but I will tell you one thing. This is 20 pounds of grain. And so it's going to take some doing to get it in the mash tun. It's usually not much fun. But that being said, the whole key is going nice and slow, making sure you don't have any dough balls. And I had the water at 168 degrees, so again, don't try and, when you're stirring this in, don't start pushing it down into the screen down below, or you're going to end up with a stuck mash, which is no fun. And I've had about, I would say over the 11 years I've been brewing, I've probably had 3 or 4, and I never had really any success at unsticking them other than dumping everything from the mash tun out, doing a clean out, then moving the mash back into the mash tun and starting over. So don't do that. It adds a lot to your brew day. That is just a lot of grain, I'll tell you what. Well, we're getting there. And hopefully we have a temperature of 152 degrees in the mash tun when we seal it up and wait an hour. I did leave the grain in here last night and I had the temperature set at, I believe, 62 or 63 degrees in the shop. And I do, in Beersmith, have temperatures set up to be around 60 degrees because in the winter the temperature of the equipment when I come in the morning is always on the cold side. And so that accounts for any equipment that's cold that's going to have to get warmed up by the water. I typically keep the grains inside the house, but I didn't last night. Oh boy. That might have been a little bit too much, but it's okay. I don't see any dough balls, so we're heading in the right direction. Man alive. I'm ready for this to be over. I believe the last time I brewed with you folks, I had Al doing the mashing, so I don't believe I had the ability to do any of that. And that Kolsch turned out great. Getting there, almost there. Meanwhile, Eva's out creating some sort of havoc in the yard. You know, better in the yard than in here. That's fixed. And that's it. Hello, baby. So she's bringing her trouble in now. That's it. Okay. Let's get the lid on it. It's at about 153. That's great. I'm very happy with that. All right, now we'll start our timer for an hour and be back when it's time to sparge. All right, kind of the moment of truth here. Let's get our first runnings going. Yeah, it's good, no stuck sparge. And it does appear to be running pretty clean. The whole point of this process now for about a quart, or a little more maybe depending, is to get a nice clean grain bed so that when you're actually sparging and you're bringing the wort into your boil kettle, that you're not bringing a bunch of grain over with it. Get a lot of that in there, and there's potential for some funny flavors. Take a lot probably to do that, but don't need that. Boy, it's a nice color too. Real dark, almost kind of an amber color to it. I don't really remember much about the first batch that I brewed, other than it turned out really good from a flavor perspective. It has a nice mouthfeel, basically kind of a full-bodied beer almost, which I guess you'd expect if you're putting that much grain in there. And then it has a nice pumpkin aroma to it, but it's not overwhelming. It's really subtle, but you can tell it's pumpkin. Unlike other flavors where you might have experimented before, where you get something subtle and you're like, I know there's something in there, a flavor I'm supposed to recognize, but I can't tell what it is. You'll know with this. Well, this really is running really grain-free. So I'm going to remove that and move that wort back into the mash tun, start the sparge, and I'll be back. Okay, so the idea here is to match the water coming in that's sparging the grains to the same throughput as you're getting down into your boil kettle. And it takes a little dialing in to get things working that way, but this is pretty close. I would say target about 1 to 2 inches of water above your grain bed, and just keep an eye on it, and you should be good. I mean, this isn't something you want to walk away on until you have it dialed in, or you're going to have a problem. So anyway, I will be back when we're ready to start the boil. Okay, we have the boil started. The sparge lasted, I'd say, like an hour and 15 minutes. I've had longer ones, but boy, I got really good utilization out of that grain. And now the cord, or the hose that I use to move the wort down from the mash tun, I've already cleaned it out with hot water, but now I'm going to run some sanitizer through it because I've got to get into the carboys with sanitizer anyway. So I get some sanitizer in there, and then I will go ahead and wait for that wort to boil, and then we'll throw in our addition of hops, and it's just a one-time addition. And then we'll have an hour boil, we'll terminate the boil, and then we'll add in the pumpkin spice. All right, this is a really good sign when you're on the verge of the wort starting to boil, when you start to get all of this foam on the top. And I'm telling you, if there's one thing you want to avoid when you're home brewing, it's a boil over. So the minute you get those hops in, when it starts to boil, and I'm just starting to get it now, you want to get on that heat and reduce it to the point where you don't have to worry about a boil over. Now, some people keep a squirt bottle of water handy, and they'll spray the surface of the wort if it starts to boil up a lot, and that breaks the surface tension. You can do the same thing with a spoon, but I'm telling you, the fastest thing to do if you start to get into a situation where this thing gets wild is just cut your heat and start over again. It'll come up to a boil real quick, and get on the controls and get it to where it's manageable. And we're going right now. I can see it's starting to boil, so I am going to put the hops in. It's 2 ounces of cluster hops for 60 minutes. I'm kind of double bagging it today to see if I can cut down on the amount of trub that I'm getting in there towards the end. And then all I'm going to do now is I'm going to wait for that to get a little bit more violent, and then I'm going to scale it down to where it's a nice kind of slow rolling boil. And then that goes for an hour, and then we'll come back in an hour and I'll already have the chiller in, because the chiller goes in 20 minutes before the end of the boil. When we kill the boil on this in an hour, then we'll put in the spice. All right, chiller's in, 20 minutes left in the boil, and I got some visitors, which are, it looks like honeybees, kind of made their way in here, so I'm trying to take care of that issue at the same time. This happened one other time, I think on a really warm brew day in the winter, but it is Texas, so anyway, back in a bit. All right, let's terminate the boil, and now we'll put in our 4 teaspoons of McCormick's pumpkin pie spice. There's 1, 2, 3, and 4. And I did sanitize the spoon, by the way, so if you were wondering, it's all clean. Now, let's go ahead and try and get that stirred in real quick. Ooh-wee. That smells good. Pretty good. Getting some good pumpkin smell here. Okay, so I will start the chiller and come back when that's chilled down. Okay, we are transferring the wort now into the carboys, and there should be enough there to get 5 gallons into each one. Might be a little bit more than that, I'm not sure. As soon as that's done, I'm going to oxygenate the wort, and then I'm going to pitch the yeast, put the airlocks on, and that will be the end of brewing this batch. But I can guarantee you I am not going to brew when it's this warm outside again, because man, it brought out the bees like you would not believe. And then I went outside and I noticed there's a bunch of gnats all over too, so these are not ideal, it's not ideal weather, I guess, for brewing. It's a lot better when it's really cold out, and then and it's warm in here, and I do my stuff and I'm not bothered by anything else. This is the aeration step. Don't need to do a lot of it. That was a little bit aggressive. Then I typically keep the stone running so I can rinse it, and then I'll throw it back in the sanitizer, but it always gets boiled for 3 minutes, 4 minutes, 5 minutes before I use it. It's the Safe Ale US-05. I feel if I get it rocking a little bit, it tends to disperse it a little bit better. Again, these packets have been sanitized, and the scissors that I used to open them has been sanitized as well. All right, let's put the airlocks in. And that's all she wrote. Well, that's it for the pumpkin ale. This is the blonde ale. If you want to know how to brew this, you can go to the videos down below and you will find one. It's a really good beer, and it's really good. I mean, you can see it looks like a commercial beer. So if people come over and they want to sample your home brew, it's something easy to start them on. So let's talk a little bit about the pumpkin ale. That was a little bit hard to get the temperature down through the chiller, because the pool temperature today was 63, which that was surprising. I mean, for December 25th. Usually it's a little bit colder than that, and I had anticipated it was colder, but it did take quite a while to get it down. I got it down to about 73 degrees and called it quits, because it's the law of diminishing returns then. The initial pre-boil gravity was supposed to be a 1.046, and I was at a 1.05, so real close. And I finished where they thought I should be on the post-boil gravity, which was 1.055, and when I say they, it's Beersmith. These are formulas that I put in myself and modified them. So, we'll see where this whole thing turns out. I'm sure it'll be great, and it smells like pumpkin pie out here right now. Even though everything's been cleared out, it just hangs in the air for a while. So that's it. Until next time, and there will be a next time, I guarantee you. Have a great day. Cheers. This has been a Matty Boy presentation. Say bye-bye, Matty.
Bye-bye.